Something seismic just happened on the Sunday shows. The mainstream media is desperately trying to bury President Trump's economic team dropped information so explosive that anchors were visibly shaken. We've uncovered the exact dollar amount being siphoned from American workers for decades, and it's in the trillions. How many countries are now begging to negotiate with Trump? Why are globalists panicking about his 2-minute offense strategy? And what did the producer price index just reveal that proves everything that we've been saying for years is true? Well, the economic liberation has begun, folks, and what happens next will change America's financial future forever. And as we step further into 2025, one thing is absolutely clear: de-dollarization's not stopping. It's accelerating. China and other BRICS nations are scared of President Trump, and it's making them more determined to reduce their dependence on the U.S. dollar and establish themselves as global economic superpowers. What is their secret weapon? Well, it's gold. In fact, China resumed buying gold, and you know what's even more telling? They underreport their buys. Doesn't it make you wonder why? Well, it's because they recognize its global value and ability to withstand economic shocks. Gold is a global asset with innate value. It's tangible, reliable, and immune to economic manipulation. China and other BRICS countries, they want to be prepared. They just don't want it known. So make sure you head over to nextnewsgold.com or call the number on the screen, 877-646-5347, and find out how you can secure your future with gold and receive 10 free silver coins when you do. Now let's jump right into it. We've got this from the press secretary today talking about her reaction when seeing Biden speaking.
My first reaction when seeing former President Biden was speaking tonight was, I'm shocked that he is speaking at nighttime. I thought his bedtime was much earlier than his speech tonight. I understand the topic of his speech will be Social Security. Let me make it very clear ahead of former President Biden's remarks. President Trump, is absolutely certain about protecting Social Security benefits for law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens and seniors who have paid into this program. He will always protect that program. He campaigned on it, he protected it in his first term, and he's back again to continue protecting it.
Looks like Joe Biden is going to be hitting the airwaves. Why? Because he is going to gaslight America and tell everybody that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are stealing Social Security. They're going to kill grandma. Yeah. No, don't believe a minute of it. Here we have more from the press secretary earlier today about the White House Faith Office.
Campaign trail that the president promised millions of Christians across the country on the campaign trail that he would create a White House Faith Office when he returned to the White House, and he has delivered on that promise. The White House Faith Office has put together an extraordinary week-long celebration currently underway for Holy Week ahead of Easter Sunday. The president signed a Holy Week proclamation, filmed a special presidential video message, and will be hosting a pre-Easter dinner tomorrow night and a White House staff Easter worship service on Thursday. The president and the first lady are honored to continue the tradition of the White House Easter egg roll, which will take place on the South Lawn next Monday.
And of course, I don't think Donald Trump is going to need the Easter Bunny to give him directions on the South Lawn, right? No, that's not going to happen. President Trump knows exactly where he is. President Trump also, we got this, exhibits excellent cognitive and physical health, is fully fit to execute the duties of the commander-in-chief and head of state. Yes, he just did his cognitive exam, passed it with flying colors. Also, we've got this from Rapid Response. Quiet part out loud, Representative Laura Friedman, a Democrat of California, admits House Democrats are meeting every single week behind the scenes.
Behind this, every single week, we have a litigation working group where a large group of us, and I'm talking there's maybe 75 members of the House, sit down every single week with the AGs to talk about legal strategy. This is all going on every single week behind the scenes. It is nonstop talk, nonstop introduction of bills and legislation, nonstop being on social media as much as we can without being throttled and without the, crazy analytics, and doing all these things.
The only legal strategies that they need to be worried about is the ones keeping them out of prison. And then we've got this. This is Rapid Response. Donald Trump Truth Social post. Our farmers are great, but because of their greatness, they're always put on the front line with our adversaries such as China whenever there's a trade negotiation, in this case, a trade war. The same thing happened in my first term. China was brutal to our farmers. These patriots, these I trust these. I don't know. I these patriots to hold on. Great trade deal was made. I rewarded our farmers with a payment of $28 billion, all through the China deal. It was a great transaction for the U.S. until Crooked Joe came in and didn't enforce it. We have more here. President Trump says it's possible that income taxes could be replaced by the money brought in from tariffs. And of course, today is April 15th. It's tax day.
Money from tariffs.
Los aranceles van a reemplazar el income tax.
You know, you're the only one that's asked me that. Oh, I deal with all these big financial geniuses. Nobody ever. There is a chance that the money from tariffs could be so great that it would replace. You know, in the old days, about 1870 to 1913, the tariffs were the only form of money. And that's when our nation was relatively the richest. We were the richest.
Yeah, get rid of the IRS, get rid of the income tax, and America will be a lot better place. Here we have Dana White dishing on Bill Maher's visit to the White House, saying he was invited by Kid Rock because Kid Rock didn't want to be there by himself if this thing goes south.
Last week, I was in, I met with the Prime Minister of the UK, and we had a fight on Saturday. Then I flew home, and the next morning, Kid Rock is blowing my phone up, and he's like, I need some help. I just got Bill Maher and Donald Trump to have dinner together, and if this thing goes south, I don't want to be there by myself. Will you fly out here?
Well, tell me about the dinner, because this is probably the most famous dinner to happen in the past year or plus.
So the first thing that happens is Bill Maher walks in into the Oval Office, and me and the president were in there, and he has a piece of paper with every name that the president has called him over the last, however many years. There were like 100 names on this list, and it was hilarious. Thank God he had two of them, because I had them both sign it, and I'm getting it framed and hanging it in my office. But I think the coolest thing about that meeting and that dinner was two guys who have not liked each other for a very long time, two guys who have many opposing views, got together and sat down and talked, and they talked about a lot of things that they agree on and a lot of things that they disagree on. But Kid Rock and I always say, and you know this better than anybody, nobody walks into a meeting or a dinner with Donald Trump and walks out and doesn't like him. It's impossible. And if you say you don't, you're lying. You're lying. So Bill Maher walks in and he's like, first of all, the president is all over me all the time because I don't wear a suit when I go to these things. So Bill Maher walks into the Oval Office and he's like, there's no way in hell I was showing up without a suit on. And I didn't have a suit on. And Bill Maher looks at me and he goes, this is definitely from the Zelensky collection.
Oh my, that's a pretty good start. That's a good way to start.
It was hilarious. It was funny. It was fun.
The Zelensky collection. Let's get into the Sunday shows. What happened? Trump saving America from global elite control. Let's jump in. Trump humiliated the fake news. Right on Air Force One. They hate when he speaks directly to you, exposing corrupt El Salvador prison system, housing the worst criminals. Listen on Air Force One.
Okay, good morning. You know the fake news? This is the fake news.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How are you guys? Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning.
We're just doing a little news conference. You want to partake?
I'll assume so.
She's a great athlete, actually, great golfer.
Yeah.
And great student, actually. So go ahead.
Question. On Monday, you're having a meeting with the president of El Salvador.
Yes.
What do you want to achieve there? Do you have any concerns about that prison? People have said it has human rights abuses.
No, I think he's doing a fantastic job, and he's taking care of a lot of problems that we have that we really wouldn't be able to take care of from a cost standpoint. And he's been amazing. We have some very bad people in that prison, people that should have never been allowed into our country, people that murdered, drug dealers, some of the worst people on earth are in that prison. And he's able to do that.
Let's keep going. We got the bombshell. Navarro confirms what we've been screaming for years. The world has been stealing from America $18 trillion transferred to foreign powers.
Here. So this is unfolding exactly like we thought it would in a dominant scenario. What's going on here is you start with the observation. I don't think you would disagree with me at all. The world cheats us. They've been cheating us for decades. They cheat us with tariffs, higher tariffs, but more importantly, they cheat us with the so-called non-tariff barriers. It's the VAT taxes, the dumping, the currency manipulation, the technical barriers that keep our autos out of Japan, the agricultural barriers that keep our pork out of Australia or Europe. They're doing that to the tune of $1.2 trillion of wealth a year that we transfer now abroad, and $18 trillion of wealth since we started running deficits. You know how much $18 trillion of America that could buy? So that's the problem we're grappling with. So we have a strategy here where the president says we're going to charge them what they charge us. And the analytical issue is it's easy to calculate the tariff differential, but the non-tariff barriers are so much higher. So that's what we set, knowing full well that a lot of countries would come right to us and want a bargain. So this is unfolding.
$18 trillion. The non-tariff barriers he's talking about is when the other countries make excuses not to import our products. They make all kinds of reasons. Here we have more. 130 countries, or 130. Remember, like a week ago it was 50, then it was 75. Now it's 130 begging to negotiate with Trump because they're terrified.
We get tax relief. The way that I would think about it is that in the previous administration, you could sort of say, if you're thinking about it in the football analogy, is that they were running out the clock. And that what's going on now in the Trump administration is across a wide array of policy areas, we're in a 2-minute offense. And the 2-minute offense is pushing, as you've seen, the reconciliation bill through so that we get tax relief for American people, deregulation, and of course, trade policy. Now, in the trade policy, the whole point of the trade policy is to address the national emergency that we're too dependent on foreign products in the U.S., especially if we were at a time of conflict, and we're doing something about that. And the reciprocal act was basically, guys, if you come to the table and negotiate with us and treat us the same way we treat you, then we'll get your rate really low. And so right now, 130 countries have responded, and we're negotiating with them, and they've got their rate down to 10%. And so really, it's kind of almost a two-world system. There's a process about China, and that's very, very nascent, if at all. And then the process for everybody else. So the process for everybody else is orderly. It's clear. People are coming to town with great offers. We've got Japan, Korea, India. I was just talking to the foreign minister of India, and everything is moving forward very quickly. And so I guess the bottom line is that the small business owner has experienced over the last few weeks the start of a process that's settling down really quite quickly. Again, 130 countries are at 10% now. The way
130 countries. We got this news too. Inflation plummeting, just like we reported. Oil down to $61. Largest tax cut in American history is now underway, but of course the lying media doesn't want you to know these points.
And we had really good news on the inflation front. Both the producer price index, which is wholesale prices, consumer price index, had the lowest print since fall of 2023. Really good news, and nobody expected that. And the reason why that kind of thing's happening is because the Trump policies on other fronts, oil's down to $61 a barrel. Okay, so, but the other thing, and this is like, should have been in that little package you had at the beginning. The Congress passed the resolution, the budget resolution, which lays the groundwork for having the biggest, broadest tax cut.
Did you hear what he just said? Here's some information you should have had in that package in the beginning. He's clearly referencing a news package that they put together, and they specifically omitted information. Let's go back just a hair and catch that.
The budget resolution, which lays the groundwork for having the biggest, broadest tax cut in American history before August. Now, what does that mean? What does it mean for both recession and inflation? It means that we're going to have a debt-neutral tax cut financed by tariff revenues that's going to stimulate growth. It could be worth as much of 1.5 points in terms of GDP growth. At the same time, it's deflationary, not inflationary. It's unlike the Biden fiscal measures, which were just pure debt driven. So there's really good news here. And I predicted 50,000 on the Dow. I predicted a broad-based S&P rally. I don't know if you know this, Kristen, but it was 7 AI stocks that pulled up the S&P 500 during the Biden years. That's not growth. We had really...
And looks like the algorithm is trying to make us look like mud right now. So stay with us. The hidden truth about China and the World Trade Organization. Real wages declined for 15 years. Americans are dying of despair as globalists got rich. Trump is reversing the damage. Listen in.
That these policies, which the president successfully enacted in the first term, are going to increase the demand for labor, increase wages, up by almost $6,500 in the first 3 years of the Trump administration. And so what it means is that even if you accept the naysayers' perspective on what might happen to the price of a cup of coffee, that the person walking into the coffee shop is going to have a lot more money. In the 15 years after China entered the WTO, real wages went down. So wages went down by more than prices, as we thought these cheap goods were going to revolutionize America. In fact, it was the opposite. Welfare went down. We had Angus Deaton write a whole book about the deaths of despair that were related to this. And so I think we're very optimistic about the fact that people are going to have more money in their pockets and that they're going to have a higher standard of living.
More money in your pocket. That's all that matters, right? We got this. Decades of economic warfare against American farmers has now been exposed. Japan's 700% rice tariff. Damn. That's some expensive fried rice.
Shannon, well, first of all, I think it's really important to realize that what President Trump is doing in his vision and his leadership is to completely realign the world economy, but in so doing, put America first and therefore American farmers first. Shannon, for decades, the way that we have been treated in this country, and especially our farmers and ranchers, is absolutely stunning. We have been living under a tariff regime, but it has been the regime of other countries. You know, Japan with a 700% tariff on our rice, Brazil with an almost 20% tariff on our ethanol, which I know you were in Kansas probably talking to some ethanol corn farmers. The EU takes less pork with 450 million people than does Honduras with 10 million people. I mean, it is one thing after another. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize how egregious it was until I took this job. I mean, I've heard President Trump talk about it for a long time. I was in his last White House as his domestic policy chief, so I was somewhat aware. But once I took the job as Agriculture Secretary and really began to dig in, the way our ag producers are treated across this world, both with high tariffs and with non-tariff barriers like unsubstantiated science claims, is just, it's egregious. So the president is working to fix it. I don't know that any other political leader in our lifetime would have ever been able to do what he is doing.
No, nobody had the balls to, because they were all getting kickbacks on the back end. Trump rescuing America's ethanol industry as well from globalist attack. Energy independence is non-negotiable.
Ethanol is a very, very important part of our energy independence strategy. President Trump has been unequivocal in his support for ethanol and in his support for the year-round sale for the E15. In fact, at the end of our last administration, we put that rule out. A court gutted that, so now we're working on it again. But as our incredible cabinet led by Secretary Chris Wright, Secretary Burgum on energy, Administrator Lee Zeldin, along with myself, we are hyper-focused on the energy independence. And ethanol and biofuels is a very, very important part of that. When I was in Iowa about a week and a half ago, we announced a big new grant to help build out more infrastructure for ethanol. We've visited almost 10 heartland states to this point in the last 2 months. I've got another 4 or 5 coming in the next 2 weeks. So we are really focused on our row croppers, especially our corn growers, sorghum, soy, wheat, etc. But having ethanol as a key part of that strategy is really important to President Trump and the highest priority at our USDA.
All right, let's keep going. Semiconductor war has begun. Lutnick confirms special tariffs incoming. We can't depend on Southeast Asia for technology. The national security implications are staggering. American chips are coming back.
Exactly. The notice that went out Friday night saying that electronics, a wide range of electronics, including smartphones, including components used to make microchips, that these are now exempt from the reciprocal tariffs. Why that move?
Well, remember, those products are going to be part of the semiconductor sectoral tariffs, which are coming. So you're going to see this week there'll be a register in the Federal Registry. There'll be a notice put out. That is different types of work. So we're going to do that. We did that in autos. The president's going to do it for pharmaceuticals, and he's going to do it for semiconductors. So all those products are going to come under semiconductors, and they're going to have a special focused type of tariff to make sure that those products get reshored. We need to have semiconductors, we need to have chips, and we need to have flat panels. We need to have these things made in America. We can't be reliant on Southeast Asia for all of the things that operate for us. So what he's doing is he's saying they're exempt from the reciprocal tariffs, but they're included in the semiconductor tariffs, which are coming in probably a month or two. So these are coming soon. You shouldn't think this is really outside of it. Really think of it as being included in the semiconductor space, much like pharmaceuticals. These require special attention, and the president is on it.
So you're saying that the big tariffs on things like smartphones and laptops, iPhones, all those iPhones built in China, that those tariffs are temporarily off, but they're going to be coming right back on in another form in a month or so? Or what are you saying?
Correct. That's right. That's right. Semiconductors and pharmaceuticals will have a tariff model in order to encourage them to reshore, to be built in America. We need our medicines, and we need semiconductors and our electronics to be built in America. We can't be beholden and rely upon foreign countries for fundamental things that we need. We can't be relying on China for fundamental things that we need. Our medicines and our semiconductors need to be built in America. Donald Trump is on it. He's calling that out. So you should understand these are included in the semiconductor tariffs that are coming, and the pharmaceuticals are coming. Those two areas are coming in the next month or two. So this is not like a permanent sort of exemption. He's just clarifying that these are not available to be negotiated away by countries. These are things that are national security that we need to be made in America.
And we have more from Howard Lutnick. American farmers getting access to India for the first time ever. Wow.
And that there's 4,000 high-tech jobs in Kansas. That is what's coming back to America. You're going to see that production, that kind of high-tech factory is going to produce things here at very reasonable prices. So I think this is going to work out. Plus, our farmers are going to finally have access to the world's markets. You know, our farmers have never had the opportunity to sell corn in India. So what's going to happen is as they sell more and more products, prices will come down.
I mean, Mr. Secretary,
it's lower prices. You're going to see lower prices in America on lots of different products. This 4,000.
Imagine that. Opening up India to the corn market of the United States is going to be huge. Here we have more. The Constitution gives Trump the power to save us from foreign domination. We will not be workers for the global elite. Make medicine and steel in America.
The president.
How concerned are you, and are you prepared to defend this in court? As you know, there's already at least one court challenge to the constitutionality of these tariffs.
The president knows the law. The president's general counsels know the law. They understand this, that Congress has passed laws that gave the president the ability to protect our national security. We need to make medicine in America. If you don't think that's national security, you're not thinking it through. We need to make semiconductors in America. We need steel and aluminum in America. We need to manufacture in America. If we just run gigantic trade deficits and sell our soul to the rest of the world, eventually we are going to be the worker for the rest of the world. We're going to be the thinker for the rest of the world, but they're going to manufacture. And if someday they say, gee, we're not sending it to you, we'll be nothing. So I think the president has national security in mind, and he's here to protect America. We need to reshore these things, and we all know it. So it is vital for us to reshore it, and we know it.
How can
No exemptions on Trump's plan to defeat Chinese economic warfare. The media lying about his strategy. Every import pays at least 20%. Critical components getting special treatment to reshore production. 5D chess. Here's Stephen Miller.
You were targeting specific items from day one. Walk us through these exemptions, Stephen, and what they mean.
Yes, this is just another great example of how President Trump had a detailed plan from the beginning that's being executed exactly as directed. And unfortunately, some in the media are deliberately misportraying that plan. The original 20% IEPA, that's the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, for China poisoning our citizens with fentanyl, that 20% rate is and continues to be applied to all imports from China. When the president issued his reciprocal tariffs, our government at the time specifically said that chips and semiconductors, which are critical components of our national security, were going to be dealt with through a separate commerce authority known as a 232. That was always the plan because those components are so essential to our national security. We need to have a separate process for dealing with how to reshore those essential industries. When the tariff rate went up to the full rate of 125 on top of the 20, it was necessary to publish a more detailed list from Customs and Border Protection explaining the rates and how they're applied. There are no exemptions. Everyone pays at least the 20%, and these particular components are being put through a separate process controlled by the Department of Commerce, which is the 232. So this is a sophisticated, elegant, detailed plan to deal with Chinese economic aggression against the United States.
History in the making. Trump saving the West from complete economic domination. The globalists tried to sell us out, but he's fighting back. This is the beginning of our economic liberation.
Domination. History will record that the actions President Trump has taken in recent days were the beginning of saving the West from complete economic domination by another power. History.
The evidence is clear. Trump's economic genius is saving America. And what the media isn't telling you is how deep this globalist economic warfare goes. Japan taxes our rice at 700%. Okay, Brazil blocks our ethanol. The EU rejects our pork, but Trump's fighting back. American farmers just got access to India for the first time ever. 4,000 high-tech jobs are returning to Kansas, and Trump just dropped a Moab. He's considering replacing the income tax with tariff revenue. Think about that. No more IRS, just foreign countries paying for access to our markets. The globalists are in full-blown panic mode because their entire system of economic extraction is crumbling in real time. So here's my question for you. Is Trump's economic strategy the greatest transfer of power back to the American worker in our lifetime? Drop a comment below. And grab your Next News gear at our merch shop. It's linked in the description at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com.